From the outside, it looked like a perfectly ordinary life. A young woman, a loving mother, a successful professional, and a caring daughter. A familiar town, a suburban home, and two little ones she adored. On the surface, peace and harmony. Beneath that calm exterior were fear, anxiety, exhaustion, and a silent pain that no one dared to speak of. Madeline Kingsbury vanished on the morning of March 31st, 2023. She disappeared suddenly, leaving behind her phone, her purse, her plans for the day, and she never made it to pick up her daughter and son from daycare. At first, it all seemed like some sort of mix-up, but soon, concern began to rise, then spiral into something far more terrifying. Within days, a quiet community was thrown into a nightmare. Born on June 1st, 1996 in the state of Minnesota, Madeline was the youngest of three siblings. From early on, she stood out from her peers. Outgoing, full of energy, with a lively spirit and an endless curiosity about the world. Her childhood unfolded in the town of Farmington, where she was surrounded by love and support. Even after her parents divorced and formed new families, the warmth within the extended family remained strong. After graduating high school in 2014, Madeline enrolled at Winona State University, choosing to study health sciences. She quickly earned a reputation as a bright, dedicated student, respected by classmates and trusted by professors. By the age of 26, Madeline had built a stable life for herself, a clear sense of purpose, a reliable career, and big dreams for the future. Everything she had accomplished was the result of perseverance and quiet strength. Her story wasn't just a list of achievements. It was proof that even through hardship and change, a person can keep their inner light shining and continue to share it with those around them. While attending university, Madeline met Adam Fravel. Though they never married officially, they moved in together and soon started a family, first welcoming a daughter, then a son. In the beginning, things seemed solid. Adam appeared to be a caring partner. He supported Madeline's goals and stood by her as she pursued her degree. When their daughter was born, he even put his own work and education on hold so she could finish her studies, a move many saw as a sign of shared commitment. But after the birth of their second child, the dynamics began to shift. Tensions grew inside the home. The pandemic hit hard. Adam lost his job and source of income, and the financial responsibility for the household fell entirely on Madeline. She was working full-time as a clinical research coordinator at Mayo Clinic, all while pursuing her master's degree at the University of Minnesota. On top of that, she was the primary caregiver for their 5-year-old daughter and 2-year-old son. Despite the growing pressure on her shoulders, Madeline continued to handle her responsibilities. Her family often noted that Adam took little to no part in raising their son and daughter. According to those closest to her, every aspect of the household, from childcare to everyday tasks, rested entirely on Madeline. She had confided more than once that she felt overwhelmed and alone in the relationship. On Adam's side, even his own relatives admitted that he didn't show much initiative when it came to their life together, and never seemed willing to share the weight of their responsibilities equally. As tensions in the relationship escalated, Adam's behavior started to shift in troubling ways. He became more controlling, limiting who Madeline could talk to, asking to see her phone messages, and reacting with jealousy whenever she interacted with other men. Over time, his behavior reportedly turned into psychological pressure and manipulation, and, eventually, as would later come to light, it escalated into physical aggression. These incidents were hidden from the public eye. Only her closest friends and family had any idea of what was really happening behind closed doors. Those who loved Madeline said she didn't fully grasp how serious things had become right away. She still held on to the hope of keeping the peace for the sake of her son and daughter. She tried to negotiate, to compromise. But then Adam crossed a line that alarmed everyone. He allegedly threatened her, bringing up the high-profile case of Gabby Petito. According to Madeline's sister and her friends, Adam had said to her directly, If you don't start doing what I say, you'll end up like Gabby. Everyone who heard about this threat urged her to report it to the authorities. But Madeline hesitated. She feared that if Adam were taken into custody, the emotional toll on her son and daughter could be devastating. Despite everything, she believed strongly that they needed a connection with their father. That belief, along with her fear that involving law enforcement could escalate the situation even further, kept her from taking official action. Her own safety became a secondary concern to the possibility of igniting something even worse. Madeline had made the decision to separate from Adam permanently. Shortly before her disappearance, she told him that she no longer planned to go through with their move. They had originally discussed relocating closer to Adam's parents so he could spend more time with the children. But Madeline had changed her mind. She believed it was best for them to stay in Winona, near their daycare, her job, and the supportive network of friends she had built there. At that point, the relationship with Adam was effectively over, even though they still lived under the same roof. In spite of everything, Madeline tried to maintain a sense of normalcy and kept making plans for the future. She had arranged to meet her sister on April 1st to drop off her daughter, a visit that was very important to her, and one she had no intention of canceling. Later, those close to Madeline recalled how she once said that, even when she was sick or completely overwhelmed, Adam never offered help. He would often spend hours in another room, ignoring the crying of their son or the mess piling up around the house. Despite his lack of involvement, Adam never seemed interested in discussing the situation or trying to fix it. He didn't look for steady work, and the few times he spoke about new career plans, they never materialized into anything concrete. Still, he stayed in the home, used Madeline's income, and behaved as though nothing was changing. His indifference didn't seem like a temporary phase. It felt like a choice. For Madeline, this growing emotional distance became one of the major reasons she felt she had to leave the relationship. It was during this stage, a quiet standoff on the surface but a deep personal shift beneath, that their relationship reached a breaking point. What once felt like temporary setbacks had become permanent. His detachment no longer seemed harmless, and her exhaustion was no longer something that would pass. These cracks beneath the smiles marked the moment when the outcome seemed tragically inevitable. As the relationship deteriorated further, Adam's behavior took a more controlling turn. His jealousy wasn't just emotional. It played out through constant interference in Madeline's personal life. He repeatedly demanded to see her text messages, especially if any conversations involved other men. This wasn't a one-time request. It became routine in their daily interactions. Madeline avoided confrontation, but she felt her personal space tightening more and more. Every message, every conversation triggered suspicion. Adam insisted she open her private conversations in front of him, and when she hesitated or tried to avoid it, his reaction became aggressive. His monitoring extended into her online life. He tracked who she added on social media, what posts she liked, and who she chatted with in messaging apps. There had already been incidents of physical aggression. On one occasion, while Madeline was holding her son and video chatting with a friend, Adam walked into the room and suddenly struck her across the face. There was no argument. The act came out of nowhere. Her friend witnessed the entire event in real time and later confirmed it to law enforcement. She also recalled other moments, seeing bruises on Madeline's face, marks around her neck. When asked, Madeline would say things like, "If I leave, he might do something terrible to me." Madeline's parents reported similar concerns. After one call from their daughter where she asked for help during a conflict, they picked her up along with her son and daughter and brought them to their home, hoping she wouldn't return to such a volatile situation. But 3 days later, Madeline made the difficult decision to go back. She said she wanted to maintain some sense of stability for her son and daughter. They didn't understand what was happening, and she wanted to protect their sense of normalcy. The weight of responsibility, for her own safety and that of her children, made it incredibly hard for her to make a final decision. Despite constant urging from friends and family, Madeline hesitated to take the final step. But the situation continued to worsen. Adam's control grew stronger, and Madeline often confided that she felt like she was being watched, even inside her own home. She told her sister that Adam would follow her from room to room, monitoring who she was talking to and what she was doing on her phone. As the date of her disappearance drew closer, Madeline no longer held on to any illusion. But her effort to exit the relationship quietly and still preserve her son and daughter's access to their father ultimately worked against her. What began as a careful attempt to reclaim her freedom turned into the trigger for a tragedy. Shortly before the incident, Madeline Kingsbury had reconnected with someone from her past. Spencer, a former classmate from college. Their connection gradually grew into a new relationship. Though they weren't living together and kept things discreet, Madeline's inner circle was aware of this new development. According to information shared during the investigation, there was no formal or domestic arrangement between them. But even this emotional closeness sparked a strong negative reaction from Adam. He forbade Madeline from speaking to Spencer when he was around, and openly voiced his anger about their interaction. Madeline felt she had to hide these changes in her life because Adam saw any display of independence as a threat. She was extremely cautious. She delayed telling him about the revised moving plans and shared details only with a small, trusted group. She even asked her mother and sister not to talk about it openly, fearing that anything might slip and get back to Adam. Spencer, for his part, didn't interfere with her decisions. After Madeline's disappearance, he fully cooperated with law enforcement and provided an alibi that was later confirmed. There was no evidence connecting him to the incident. Still, the mere fact that he was part of Madeline's life heightened the tension at home. Adam seemed to sense that he was losing control. By early spring 2023, Madeline Kingsbury had reached a turning point. In her mind, the past was already behind her, and a new chapter was just beginning. Her decision to leave Adam wasn't a surprise to her loved ones, but she had been waiting to make it public until she felt the time was right. Her fear of Adam's reaction wasn't exaggerated. She didn't trust him. That's why she kept her plans hidden until the very last moment. Madeline's decision to leave quietly but for good was the natural conclusion of a long internal struggle. She was ready for a fresh start, and she was standing right at the threshold of it. On the morning of March 31st, 2023, Madeline Kingsbury did what she always did on a Friday. She dropped off her son and daughter at daycare with Adam Fravel. Surveillance cameras captured the two of them arriving together around 8 a.m. They brought the kids inside and then walked out. After that, they returned home. According to Adam, Madeline had planned to work for a bit before heading into the office. She worked in person on Fridays. He claimed that after they got home, he didn't see her again. The last confirmed sign of activity from Madeline came in the form of a message to her sister, Megan. At 8:15 a.m., she sent a quick comment on a photo they had been discussing the night before. The tone was light and friendly. After that, there was nothing. No more texts, no returned calls. That silence immediately raised red flags for their mother, Krista. She tried to call Madeline several times, but there was no response. Growing uneasy, she reached out to Megan to ask if she had heard from her sister that day. Megan confirmed their brief morning exchange, but said she hadn't heard anything since. She began texting Madeline too, but got no reply. In their family, it was unusual to go quiet without an explanation. That kind of behavior didn't match who Madeline was, especially given how attentive she was with her son and daughter, and how committed she was to staying in touch. Realizing this wasn't just a delay or a missed call, Megan knew she had to act. She was in a different city and couldn't go to Madeline's house herself. So she called Kate, one of Madeline's close friends who lived nearby, and asked her to stop by and check on things. Kate agreed and headed over. When she arrived, she saw Madeline's minivan parked in the driveway. That was an immediate cause for concern. If the car was still there and Madeline wasn't responding, it likely meant she was home or something was wrong. Kate knocked on the door, but there was no answer. The lights were off inside, and there were no signs of movement. She tried calling Madeline multiple times, but again, no response. The realization that something wasn't right came quickly. Kate contacted the Winona Police Department and requested a wellness check. She explained the situation, mentioned that Madeline hadn't been reachable all day, and noted that there had been serious tension recently with her partner. That evening, around 8:20 p.m., an officer arrived at Madeline's residence. He checked the perimeter, knocked on the door, and looked through the windows. The minivan was still there, but no one came to the door. There were no visible signs of forced entry or disturbances inside the house. The officer got in touch with both the family and Adam. Adam told them he hadn't seen Madeline since that morning. He claimed she didn't show up to pick up the kids from daycare, so he went to get them himself and drove to his parents' place in Mabel, a town about an hour from Winona. He didn't seem overly concerned and hadn't reported her missing. Despite all the signs, police declined to file a missing persons report right away. According to local procedure, 24 hours had to pass since the last contact before a case could be formally opened. This decision left Madeline's family frustrated and confused. They had clearly explained that this was completely out of character for her and that something serious might be going on. But no exceptions to protocol were made. The first night after Madeline went missing was filled with uncertainty for her family. There were no updates, not a single confirmed clue about where she might be. None of her friends or co-workers had any idea where she could have gone, and her phone remained silent. Attempts to call or track her activity through apps led nowhere. Everything pointed to one unsettling conclusion. Madeline hadn't just stepped away. She had vanished, suddenly and without a trace. Once Madeline Kingsbury was officially reported missing, police began taking statements, and the focus quickly turned to Adam Fravel. According to his account, on the morning of March 31st, after dropping off their son and daughter at daycare together, the two of them returned home. He claimed that Madeline stayed behind to take a remote work meeting, while he started packing up his belongings in preparation to move into his parents' house. Adam said he planned to take some boxes to Mabel and others to a storage unit, and that he took Madeline's minivan for the day, leaving her his own vehicle. In his version of events, he left the house, stopped at a gas station, then returned to load more boxes before heading out toward Mabel. But midway through the trip, he allegedly realized he had mistakenly packed the boxes meant for storage, so he turned around and drove back to Winona. He claimed that he was on the road from about 10:30 a.m. to noon. When he returned home, he said his own car was still in the driveway, but Madeline was gone. Something that didn't raise any alarm for him since he assumed she had gone to work. Later, he picked up their son and daughter from daycare and drove to his parents' house, where he spent the rest of the day. Investigators began reviewing surveillance footage from the neighborhood. Even in the early stages of their analysis, key inconsistencies in Adam's story emerged. Surveillance footage captured a vehicle matching the minivan's description, driving on highways through Winona and Fillmore County. However, contrary to Adam's claims, no camera in Mabel ever recorded the van's arrival. In fact, following a long stretch with no surveillance sightings, the van reappeared on footage back in Winona, returning to the driveway. The gap between approximately 10 a.m. and 1:30 p.m. remained unexplained. No camera recorded the van or its driver during that entire time. This raised serious concerns that the vehicle had been in a remote location without cameras, and that something might have been deliberately concealed. When investigators questioned Adam again, he couldn't provide a convincing reason for why his travel route didn't match what the cameras showed, or why the GPS on his phone didn't contain any record of the trip. It was later discovered that on the day before Madeline disappeared, Adam had turned off location tracking across all his accounts, including several Gmail addresses, and had also deactivated the home's security camera system. Even more suspicious, the surveillance system installed at his parents' house, where he later brought the kids, had been wiped clean. During the search of the house, investigators discovered that parts of the home's security system had been physically removed, and the memory cards were missing. Adam couldn't provide a clear explanation for why this had happened precisely at the time of Madeline's disappearance. He claimed it was part of getting ready for the move, but given the context, none of it made sense. Detectives believed it was a deliberate attempt to eliminate any visual evidence of movement or of a possible confrontation. What drew additional concern was Adam's behavior after Madeline went missing. He didn't take part in the search efforts, didn't show any initiative in gathering information, avoided making public statements, and kept his distance from the volunteers. Later, he said law enforcement had advised him not to get involved, a claim officials later denied. All of these actions, removing security footage and disabling GPS tracking, began to form a troubling picture. By that point in the investigation, it had become clear that Adam's behavior didn't align with that of someone genuinely worried about the disappearance of the mother of his son and daughter. While no formal charges had been filed yet, the investigation increasingly focused on him. On April 1, 2023, police executed a search of the home Madeline Kingsbury shared with Adam Fravel. Her personal belongings were still there, items she wouldn't have left behind willingly. Her coffee cup and plate were still on the kitchen counter. Her jacket, the same one she was seen wearing on daycare cameras that morning, was hanging in the closet. Her phone and purse were also found in the house. These details made it clear that Madeline had not left the house of her own accord. She wouldn't have gone to work or anywhere else without the items essential for communication and her job. Staff at the Mayo Clinic, where she was expected in person that day, confirmed she never showed up. Investigators also paid special attention to the garage. A roll of black Gorilla Tape was found there that matched the color and width of tape later found on the sheet her body was wrapped in. This pointed to an intentional effort to obscure movements or delay identification. The search didn't reveal any visible signs of a struggle or blood, but forensic teams noted possible indicators of a cleanup. In the trash bin outside, they found partially burned fragments of plastic and electronic components. Lab analysis later suggested they could be remnants of a laptop. Another red flag was a mattress in one of the bedrooms. It had no sheets and showed stains that were sent in for testing. Police noted that an air mattress in the home was missing a gray fitted sheet. Investigators later searched the home of Adam's parents. There, in the trash area, they discovered several discarded electronic devices and the remnants of what appeared to be a fire pit. Forensic specialists believed a laptop casing may have been destroyed in the fire. Nearby was Adam's truck, and in the bed of the vehicle was a garden shovel. A neighbor with outdoor cameras provided police with footage. Following Madeline's disappearance, Adam was seen driving that very truck, and the shovel was visible in the back. Cadaver detection dogs were brought in, trained specifically to recognize human scent. Both the shovel and the truck bed triggered alerts from the dogs. Adam's relatives responded by saying the tool had allegedly been used a few days earlier by Adam's father to bury a deceased animal on the property. But experts countered that the dogs were trained to differentiate between human and animal scents, and their reactions suggested the possible presence of human biological traces. At the same time, Adam was called in for another round of questioning. Investigators noticed fresh scratches on his face and neck. He claimed they came from contact with animals or workout equipment. These explanations didn't sit well with detectives. A medical evaluation noted that the location and pattern of the marks were more consistent with defensive wounds or the result of a physical altercation, not something that typically happens by accident. Each new discovery added to the growing suspicion. Adam's actions didn't reflect those of someone deeply concerned about the well-being of a loved one. He hadn't filed a missing persons report, didn't join search efforts, and showed little initiative. The evidence: Madeline's personal belongings left behind, deleted digital records, attempts to destroy electronic devices, traces of possible cleanup, and unusual movements, all pointed to one undeniable conclusion. The house, which outwardly appeared calm and ordinary, had become the central focus of the investigation, and what had taken place inside spoke louder than any words. On June 7, 2023, the case took a critical turn. That day, the body of a woman was found in a wooded area in rural Fillmore County, far from residential neighborhoods.
Unfortunately, while this discovery is not what we were hoping for, we are thankful to be able to bring Maddie home to her family.
It was in the area of this intersection along Highway 43, a few miles north of Mabel, which is not far from the Iowa border, and in a brushy area off of a public gravel road, where Maddie Kingsbury's remains were found early Wednesday afternoon, confirmed by the medical examiner on Thursday morning.
The area had been previously searched, but Maddie's body was covered and concealed in such a manner that she was not visible.
The discovery was the result of a targeted search effort led by investigators, including a careful analysis of the routes Adam Fravel had taken on the day Madeline disappeared. The remains were wrapped in a gray-fitted bedsheet and tightly secured with layers of tape. Investigators also found a knotted towel wrapped around her head and neck. These materials had been bundled in a way designed to limit odor and delay detection. The location had been carefully chosen. It was hard to reach and located on a property not directly tied to the Fravel home. However, it was later confirmed that the land was near property belonging to Adam's family. Once the body was identified through dental records and tattoos, Adam Fravel was taken into custody. A warrant for his arrest was issued immediately. He did not resist. He was formally charged with 2 counts of second-degree murder. Prosecutors presented evidence gathered over more than 2 months of investigation. Detectives determined that the bedsheet found with the body was consistent with a missing sheet from an air mattress in the shared home. The towel matched a set stored in a hallway closet. Partial fingerprints were recovered from the tape, and they matched Adam's biometric data. In addition, DNA found on the towel likely came from Fravel and Kingsbury. According to investigators, the motive behind the crime appeared to stem from a combination of factors. At the forefront was control. Adam realized he was losing his grip on Madeline. She was preparing to move out, had begun a new relationship, and no longer followed his rules. This disrupted the structure of the life he was used to. Another factor was financial. Madeline had a life insurance policy, and in the event of her death, Fravel could have been eligible for a payout. Lastly, her decision to leave would have meant shared parenting responsibilities, taking away the leverage he had used to manipulate the situation. Experts who examined the remains concluded that Madeline died from homicidal violence, with a knotted towel found around her head and neck. The absence of any signs of struggle at the location where her body was found suggested the crime had likely occurred elsewhere, most likely in her home. Psychological experts working on the case emphasized that crimes of this nature are often committed by someone close to the victim. These incidents are typically the tragic climax of prolonged conflict, where violence is used not as a spontaneous act of rage, but as a final attempt to regain control. Following his arrest, Adam Fravel refused to cooperate with authority. During interrogations, he dodged direct questions, citing fatigue or confusion about events. He did not admit guilt, but during the preliminary hearings, the court determined that the evidence was sufficient to proceed with a full criminal trial. The judge ordered that he be held in custody without bail. So, 68 days after Madeline went missing, the truth began to emerge through verified facts. The fears, suspicions, and painful guesses turned into evidence. And while nothing could bring Madeline back, the investigation had accomplished its most critical goal, providing answers about what happened and who was responsible. With Adam Fravel in custody, the case entered its next painful chapter, the legal process of pursuing justice. The charges were supported by both direct and circumstantial evidence, physical items found in the house, connections between what was discovered with the body and what was found in Adam's possession, witness statements, expert evaluations, and the long, documented history of the couple's relationship, all forming a consistent, compelling narrative. The court scheduled preliminary hearings, where Adam continued to deny any involvement. He claimed he had no idea how Madeline's body ended up where it was found, and insisted he would never have harmed her. His defense attempted to cast doubt on the investigation, suggesting mistakes or misunderstandings, but public opinion was nearly unanimous. Amid the legal proceedings, a separate and deeply personal battle was unfolding. Madeline's family was fighting for custody of her son and daughter. They sought legal rights to raise them, away from the influence of a father now under serious criminal investigation. As of now, a jury has found Adam Fravel guilty of first-degree premeditated murder and other charges. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. He has since filed an appeal. Madeline's parents have been granted full custody of the children. Madeline's memory lives on through the actions of search groups, advocacy communities, and charitable efforts. Her story became a powerful symbol, a reminder of how vital it is to recognize the warning signs of domestic abuse and to take them seriously. In Minnesota and beyond, people took to the streets, started foundations, and demanded change so that tragedies like this would never happen again. But beneath all the rallies and efforts, one heartbreaking truth remained. 2 young lives left without their mother and, in many ways, without their father. A life silenced in private, leaving behind an echo too loud to ignore. Thanks for watching. Smash that like button, drop a comment, and share to help grow the channel. Your support means the world. Catch you next time.